what we'll be going through today. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself, the company that I currently work for, how I know your professors, including Zach. Then get into a little bit of an exercise on marketing. I taught this similarly last year, and it seemed like it went pretty well for the teams. So excited to get in and talk about things. A couple things before we start. First, I am not a professor. So interrupt, ask questions. My goal today is to make sure you guys get a basic sense of my world as primarily a marketer and how that impacts particularly a growing tech product, which is the world I live in right now. To that end, if there's anything that you're curious about, whether it's marketing, startups, living Boulder, the fact that I wear sandals all day, every day, just ask. I'm happy to share whatever I can help with. So, any questions before we start?
Even if it's snowing?
Even if it's snowing. I have to. Cool. So, my name is Keith Gruen. I currently am the head of operations and marketing for Meet Mindful. Does anybody know what Meet Mindful is? No. Great. Maybe?
I've heard it before, but
okay.
Can't.
Okay. So it's actually really nice that you don't know what Meet Mindful is because you're not our target customer, which means that we're doing marketing correctly. Meet Mindful is an online dating site and app for folks who are into spirituality, personal development, yoga, organic living, and the general mindfulness trend that is the most stereotypical way that you could look at a Boulder Whole Foods customer. So that's the company I work for. We went through the Techstars Boulder class in 2016. I've been around and helping the company for about 3 years. Before that, I worked at Gruen. Does anybody know what Gruen is? No? It's a yoga company, yeah. So they make the yoga ball chairs that you can sit in and it apparently helps your posture. They also run a streaming video division, so I worked basically for the Netflix of yoga for a couple years. I am not a yoga person. I've never done yoga in my life. But it's been the industry that I found myself in. Before that, I got my full-time MBA here at the Leeds program. Graduated in 2013. Interned all over the place during that process, and before that was living out in Boston working in the classical music industry. So all sorts of different experience. Yeah, that face, exactly. So that's a little bit about me and the company. You guys are in teams right now? Is that still the case? Cool. Is everybody sitting with their teams? For the most part? All right. How many times have you had to do your elevator pitches? A few times so far? Yeah. Okay. What I want to start off with is going around the room and at least one person from your team giving me your elevator pitch so that I can start to understand what products we're dealing with here. So is there a side of the room that would prefer to start? You guys? Go for it.
So we're Team Flatiron, and we're working on a location-based messaging platform that allows users to anonymously communicate in specific locations.
Okay.
So think Slack chat, channels that are in actual locations.
Okay. Cool. And so we're Human Goes, my co-founders right here right now, but essentially we're just an automated sports video editing platform using computer vision and AI to get analytics about a game just from the footage and being able to edit it for a coach seamlessly. Cool.
We're QuickJob.io and we're working on a job board sorted by how long it takes to transition.
Awesome.
Us three are a game plan, and we're planning on operating a service where we use formal verification to debug your Android app so it doesn't crash on your customer's phone.
Like ours did all day yesterday. Release something with an incredible.
We would love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, that would be great. Talk to you. That would be phenomenal because Android debugging sucks.
Customer.
Yeah. Next.
We're Hearth. We're developing smart vents that connect with your existing smart home technologies so that you can more directly control the heating throughout your home.
Cool.
So you can load money onto a card beforehand, and then you can bring it up to the bars, and we can use QR scans to make the transaction easier, and then college students can help budget their spending at bars a lot easier.
We recently switched our idea, but we're working on a web application that combines terrain status information on ski trail maps and displays like other information on there too.
Us three are working on a productivity app that's meant to combine all the different chats and websites and calendars and everything that college students have to use into just a single place, so there's not a billion of them.
Awesome.
We switch our idea 2 times. So our new idea again is about the travel. So
Okay.
yeah, we haven't figured it.
Great.
Yeah, my partner's not here, but my idea is like a kind of like a music streaming platform that allows the artists to connect more with their listeners, and also allows the listeners to help support their artists directly and not be paid like the normal.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So.
it's like a music streaming platform, kind of like SoundCloud or Spotify, but
Yeah.
it allows artists to get paid a lot more efficiently versus like the pay-per-play that they use now, and that's pretty much it.
Great. Okay. Next.
Okay, so we're working on a mobile application called Gruen. It's a platform where makeup users can share, organize, and discover makeup looks.
Awesome.
And as to here, we just recently pivoted as well, but we're doing essentially a location-based image sharing application. Pretty self-explanatory there.
Actually, we're working on a mobile application. It's a happy hour finder for travelers and students, so you can kind of think of like ways for happy hours almost.
Great.
My team isn't here, but we're working on a ticketing platform specifically focused on preventing ticket scalpers.
Cool. It's a wide range of projects. That's really awesome. Are you guys all, if I remember correctly, you're all engineering majors? Computer science guys and girls? Cool. Anybody have any minors attached with that? Okay. Anybody in the marketing or business end of that? Cool. So there's a couple people that might know what I'm talking about. How comfortable with the concept of marketing would you say you are from a scale of like 1 to 5? 5 being super, super comfortable. 3? Kind of know what's going on. 2s. Anybody like a 5 or 6?
That's correct.
No?
0% something.
Okay. So I will just, in terms of giving a little bit more background on me and how it relates to how I got into the marketing side. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in the classical music industry out in Boston. I was a classical piano major for undergrad, which is great for my ability to talk about Beethoven, but really shitty for me to actually get a job. So you guys are definitely doing things in the way that the world works now, which is great. I ended up working for a concert production company doing orchestra concerts, and ran into an issue where the company that I was working for was placing newspaper ads to get ticket sales and attempting to engage the younger generation through newspaper advertising. You laugh, right? Because it seems really disjointed. So that's when I got into the marketing side and started down the digital marketing route. That is a great example of a marketing strategy that we'll talk about, and a channel being a horrible fit for the ideal customer that they were going after. Like, it worked for all the old people, it didn't work for the young people that they were trying to get. So that started me down that track. My MBA here was in marketing analytics, so it was a lot of understanding. While we're waiting take one of these, pass them down. You really only need one per team, but if you want to take multiples, we'll work through them all together. They got me into digital marketing pretty heavily. The key for me was trying to figure out how to match up what I'm doing with my ideal customer. So what I want to talk through today is the first half talking through some basic marketing strategy, how to think about how to sell what you're building now, because eventually, that if you want to make these viable companies and viable projects, you're going to have to sell what you're making to real people. So we'll run through a little bit of the strategy end, and then talk through tactics. This may seem super basic, but I want to start with the very, very top level basic end of the world, so that we can get clear on what some of these super basic marketing terms mean. Questions before we get started? Kind of a little workshop session? Yeah.
Will we go into SEO and that's sort of low-level marketing, or just stay
Yep.
high level?
Yeah, we're going to spend the first half talking about the high level, and then the second half about individual channels, any specific tactical stuff. Your homework, just to preview it, is going to be, given what we've talked about today, come up with 3 different marketing campaigns that can address your ideal customer through a channel that we've talked about, or through something differently. And that, my understanding is that you guys will present that next week. So it can be pretty open-ended at that point, but just want to actually get you thinking about how this actually impacts what you're doing. So, any other questions? No? Cool. We're going to work on this half of the worksheet first. So, marketing strategy, customer development. You guys just gave me your elevator pitches, the first half of which had some element of purpose, but the purpose of what you're building. What are you actually building? Think about that for a minute. You guys are building something to help people find ski runs? That's my understanding of that. Is that really the purpose of what you're building, or is there something else behind that?
I guess there could be something else behind it, like the ski resorts, or, yeah.
Okay. Everybody else pretty clear on what the purpose of what they're building is?
To make us money.
To make money. You can have a whole lot of different purposes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you guys, this is a great example, right? I have a headache with Android app testing. So one of the purposes that I hear there, or we'll get into the value there, is pretty clear for me. How about somebody over here? What's the purpose of what you're building?
Save people time planning happy hours and promote local businesses.
Anybody else have a super clear purpose? Is anybody's purpose not super clear to them? No? Everybody knows exactly why they're doing what they're doing?
I'm not sure if ours is either to increase business for bars or to help college students save money.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can have a couple different ones there. That's generally in the marketing world, that'll also be your vision or your mission statement. So in the next, I'll give you 30 seconds or so, write down what your purpose is on that sheet so that you don't forget it. It could be the first sentence of your elevator pitch. It could be something different. It could be provide value to customers and bars. Have you guys done empathy interviews, talked to potential customers? Yeah? Okay. Do you think if you went out and talked to a potential customer right now and you asked them what your purpose was, that they could recite that back to you? Sort of, maybe? I just did it for a couple of you because I thought I understood the purposes. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. The purpose of Meet Mindful, as we stated, just a minute, is to create mindful connections for people every day, or to enable mindful connection between people every day. That is not what most people think we are, because they think we're the Tinder for yoga people. But underlying how we actually do our jobs, or what we're building, is a purpose that we're trying to build these connections and enable connections for this particular group of people or persona. See the difference there? So your purpose doesn't have to be actually what you market to people with or how you communicate. It's just your North Star or North Stars. Any other question?
Yeah, so if we've been using a bottom-up approach for the past 8 months, how would a campaign like this benefit? Or like how can we structure a campaign to fit our approach better?
When you say bottom-up?
It's like we're reaching out to every potential customer individually because it's like a subscription-based, expensive, specifically for schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't just market to coaches Facebook ad.
Right.
It's better just, talk to them on LinkedIn, talk to them for a bit, sell to them.
Yeah. At the tactical level of how you communicate with them, it can be very different and very personalized.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit disconnected, but still tied into your purpose of why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay.
So how you communicate, they might not be able to tell you. My customers can't tell me that Be Mindful is there to create meaningful connections every day. They just see us as a dating app. So when we reach out to them, our communication is find your potential soulmate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not make the world a better place by fostering human connection.
Right.
Does that
makes sense.
clarify
Yeah.
it a little bit?
Yeah.
So the next piece is pretty basic, but can be a little bit tricky. And I have a good story of our world behind it, but moving into the customer itself. You guys have talked to potential customers. I imagine that for the teams that have pivoted, talking to customers may have actually shown you that your first ideas weren't really sustainable. Is that true? Yeah. It happens. Talking to customers and understanding what they need is the most important piece of this entire marketing world. Because you might be able to build the greatest piece of technology, your app or program for the bars might be the coolest, most elegantly programmed thing ever. But if it's something that doesn't address a customer need, nobody's going to buy it, nobody's going to use it. So it's just going to exist, which is great if you want to just exist and have all of the money in the world, but it kind of sucks if you need money. So in your elevator pitches, I heard, we are X for a particular customer. How did you guys come up with who that customer was? Anybody? I can ask it a different way. Who's your product for? Makeup users. So how can you describe your ideal makeup user?
Yeah, someone who uses makeup on a daily basis and uses social media to find different ways. So uses social media to find different makeup looks.
Okay. Let's see, how about you guys? Who's your ideal customer?
Someone in the market for a job.
Okay. Any more specific than that?
Someone who uses online searches as a primary way to find jobs.
Cool. So we're going to take another 30 seconds or so just to give you some time to think through it. Your ideal customer. What we would call an ideal persona or an ideal segment. Basically, if you had to create the person who's going to get the greatest value out of your product, what would that be? Who would they look like? Would they have a name? Would they have an age? Particular gender? Particular socioeconomic class? What do they look like? Write it down, talk about it. We'll come back in a minute and share it. We're going to go backwards around the room, starting from over here. What I want is and we're going to practice company marketing at the same time, because it's an important concept. I want somebody to stand up, give me your elevator pitch again, and tell me who your ideal customer is.